Hello everyone, my name is John Adams from Keysight Technologies. Today I'm going to speak with you about visibility architecture, and with that, how we implement Extrahop's Next Generation IDS into this situation to give you an end-to-end solution for both NetOps and SecOps. Okay, so I'm not going to spend my time reading through this slide. You can get this slide and do it yourself later, but the biggest thing I want you to focus on this slide is the right-hand side, the diagram. So on this diagram, we're going to observe that Extrahop fits very well in both doing network performance monitoring and traffic analysis for forensic network analysis to start to understand how are my devices working inside my network. So Keysight Technologies with their visibility architecture comes in to give you network detection and response, as you see from the bottom of that diagram, in the forms of network packets and traffic or metadata or NetFlow. This will then ride to our Vision Network Packet Broker that will act as infrastructure to make the traffic most efficient and most correct for whatever the tool may be on this north side. In this case, we're lucky enough to have the same tool that's going to provide us information and analysis both on network operations and performance, but also security operations and threat intelligence. Today, we're going to be mostly speaking over security points. And the big thing that I want to point out, or what we're starting to find in the real world, is that there's a serious issue of unreliable data or data that could be compromised, which is being used for security investigation and audit. So very quickly, you'll see a very tight little animation there on the left. You have a Meterpreter tool, which is used by hackers or people who will exploit devices to be installed on those devices. And as you can see, with a simple two-word command prompt line, I'm able to clear all the logs in that system that the security team would be using or would be auditing to ensure that, or to find out what's happening, or to do their investigation in the long term. So the question is, how can we get to uncompromised data, or data that will always be true and always give us the most realistic information in the situation? So before we get into that, let's go back to the big picture. So we want to be able to collect data not only from our far left data centers, which would be our traditional physical networks with the big air-conditioned buildings. There we would apply such as physical taps, or hypervisor style taps to your virtualized appliances inside that data center. This would all lead once again to the network packet broker infrastructure in the middle. As you would see to the north of that, we have all of the capabilities to extract the traffic also from the public cloud venues. From that point, then, we get to have all this traffic at a single point of infrastructure, the packet broker, where I could then apply specific feature sets to ensure each of the devices on my right operate as best as they're supposed to be, because I want to make sure they stay healthy and they can live long lives and give me the best information for the money I spend into them. So real quickly going through this again. At the very beginning, we want to access the traffic, and we'll lay this out into 3 different layers. We'll first access with taps, physical or virtual, bypass switches, or span ports in your production network. So from this, we'll have a true, full identification of what's happening across the wire inside the network. There's no way to delete these files after they've been extracted from the wire. But once we've pulled that traffic from the wire, we're going to move it north to the network packet broker, which once again is going to allow us a lot of feature sets to feed these various tools. In the furthest north, our monitoring layer, where you will have specific security tools, performance monitoring tools, or items such as SIT tools to watch call logs. And in all these cases, the idea is that I don't want my devices to spend any more cycles or thoughts on any of this traffic coming in, because every single time I'm thinking about this, I'm not doing the job I want it to do. So once again, remove all the traffic that's unnecessary for your tools to get their job done, and allow yourself a infrastructure tool that's easily configurable by engineers of all natures, because it's an intuitive GUI that uses automation to do things for you. So you use this very intuitive tool to allow you to management of all of this traffic, and then let's say with the least amount of growing pain possible. So real quickly, a tap. A physical tap, as you would see here, will lay directly in line of your two network devices. This will allow me to capture, or rather redirect, a portion of that light signal from both of your network devices. So transmit A, transmit B, which will allow me to have full duplex information coming from this network segment. So there is no misunderstanding, or how to say, there's no filtering of the traffic coming from the wire. As soon as this is in, you're getting the full traffic out. From that point, we take that traffic and we lead it to a packet broker. The packet broker will be capable of matching various speeds and is also going to be used for allowing you to cross various speeds, such as having devices that may reside on 1 gig ports, 10 gig ports, 40 gig ports, up to 100 gig ports with our Vision X. Going back to those features on the packet broker, everything starts at the very bottom with our net stack. These are the most common and easy, let's say, feature sets of the packet broker. Inside of this, we're going to use such as aggregation to bring together multiple links of traffic to send to one device, or filtering. I only want to send web traffic to this device and SIP traffic to this other device. We also are going to give you a patented auto filter compiler, which means you will not have a filter list to manage or configure. You will be connecting pictures with dots that read as pictures do in 1,000 words. With that, we can regenerate that traffic, meaning that if I get the traffic going to one tool, I can make sure that traffic can also be available to go to another tool, and thus we can also load balance between various tools as well. With that, we'll then move into packet stack. Packet stack, once you see a new stack, you can consider we have a new piece of hardware, because as I said, we're going to need specialized hardware to ensure each of these feature sets works correctly. We want a lossless visibility topology. Any false information or missing information will add on time for you to resolve the problem. And the thing is when it comes to security, time is of the essence. You have to get all the information immediately and ensure that your analytical tools, which is expecting all the information, for that tool to be as best it can be, it needs everything. So all the features must work, and I need a complete picture of the network. Going back to packet stack. So this is where I'm going to be allowed to do certain packet modifications, such as I can apply a timestamp, a PTP timestamp, if I want to understand exactly how long it takes for me to get from one network segment to another network segment, meaning I'm going to validate how long it takes me to get through a router or a switch or a firewall. From that, if I'm doing both network performance monitoring and security, it may be important that I understand traffic from every single leg in a performance monitoring play. In security, I'm usually focusing around the firewall, but I might have both of these implementations inside my network. So let's make sure we deduplicate all those extra packets so you don't have any more metadata crunching on your analysis side, to ensure, once again, this tool has the longest life, its database stays as clean as possible, and it can do its job as best it can. So continuing forward, we have the ability to do some data masking from a specific header forward. You'll see data masking above in Secure Stack. We'll jump in that in just a moment. And then with that, packet trimming, GRE tunnel termination, mostly things outside of the application layer. But then once again, we add in more hardware. We go into App Stack and Secure Stack. We also have a few other stacks that I'm not going to speak on today, but just be aware there's hardware and software that applies to each of these. The App Stack, for example, is going to give you our threat intelligence. Our threat intelligence is derived from our security testing platforms. So the original, let's say, software, a lot of this information is coming from, is from a let's say a sandbox penetration testing tool that also validated high load, our breaking point system. So this has been running for over 20 years, and the team has always had to ensure we had the most correct and most current attacks to validate firewalls and intrusion protection prevention systems. So if we can test that intelligence as your traffic comes through, we'll see if it matches anything that we know, so that we can give you some heads up information, and then we can enrich NetFlow data with this new threat intelligence information. With that, we're able to read at the application layer and get into deep packet inspection, and we can now do application filtering as well. With the current times, we have new issues arising, such as that most of the traffic entering your network is encrypted by SSL. So we do have the options to do SSL decryption so that we can enable the analysis of the traffic as well by your security tools. At this point, data masking will be different from the packet stack data masking because, as I said, we're now in the deep packet inspection application layer. In this style of data masking, I'm not going to go from a header and tag everything forward. I'm going to create a regular expression, regex expression, that's going to say, if I see such as this string of numbers, which looks like a credit card number, I'm going to mask exactly that, or this account number, or this sensitive data for my bank customer, or my government customer, or my military customer. All these cases, we want to make sure data loss prevention is ensured, and also we don't compromise ourselves with our own people who can be auditing this information later. So then, moving back to the topology. So once again, now we're going to use taps, as you see to the left, to tap various network segments. That can be the physical wire going between each of your border gateway routers, switches, firewalls, all the way going to the hypervisor virtual switch that would reside in your servers for virtual clouds on-prem. We extract all that data and then send it to the packet broker, where we can then do various things to that data, such as applying timestamps to ensure how long it took to get between the switches or the routers, or such as applying SSL decryption before we send it to a security tool so that you can have 100% unencrypted traffic for checking. And this may also, let's say, reduce certain feature sets on your analytical tools so they can do what they're supposed to do, which is analytics. So from there, we're going to get into Threat Simulator, our breach and attack simulation tool. So the Threat Simulator is a breach and attack simulation tool that safely simulates real attacks in an automated and continuous manner that also provides remediations and actionable intelligence. So, as I was saying before, Keysight, or a previous company acquired, Ixia, had a very, very strong or still running sandbox penetration testing tool, pre-deployment screening tool, which resided here in the bottom right of the screen. This was the Breaking Point system. Now, this system would be bought by customers or network equipment manufacturers to validate the firewall configuration, so that it was, correct for allowing X or Y, Z through and blocking A, B, and C. But also from the network equipment manufacturer side, they would buy us or use us during bake-offs to validate, yes, this is our data sheet, and this is how much traffic that can pass through us, and these are the attacks we can block, and now we're going to prove it. We were used to prove it. So the thing is that this is very, very heavy testing that would have to be in a very controlled environment, and you would never generally put this in a production type situation because you're focusing on heavy load with the attacks, because that's where we see certain failures. Just to speak then also a little bit more about this graph, we say on the left side, you see that y-axis, that's going to be the frequency of validations, while the x-axis is the completeness on how realistic these validations are. So in the top left, we have vulnerability assessments. This could be port scanners, things that are going to open a telnet connections to all the ports on your device. And it's going to say, well, if this telnet or this port is open, you might be susceptible to this. And it might try to do a few little checks in to say, well, I think you have these problems, or I think you have this issue, or you could be susceptible to this. But it's not going to act as a, let's say, malicious host or server inside your environment, going through the normal actions of how an attack will be conducted. Now, you would then use such as penetration testers or red and blue teams to come in and do this action for you, because this is where you're going to get the realism. The fact is, what we've come to learn in our security tracking in these days, you can't block everything by signature, and your firewall configuration isn't enough. You actually need to have people constantly checking the security situation to ensure that at all times there isn't a new problem, or we haven't created a problem through temporary policy changes. Or we need to validate that our new security systems are working correctly. Or there's a new security alert, the new sunburst indicators of compromise are out. How do I know that I'm safe from this situation? Now we go up north, and this is why we get into breach and attack simulation. The point is that we understand that we need to always be kind of observing our environment. This is why we get into SecOps and SOAR and all these types of things. We must always be observing the environment, but then it comes to that issue. I need something that can be controlled to validate my environment is functional, being security. On the network side, for example, I might do a ping test or use a more sophisticated tool from Keysight to ensure that I have good jitter or loss on my line with very sophisticated network testing. It's the same concept. Now we're going to say, will your security tools see this type of attack? And I'll say, for example, the indicators of compromise for Sunburst, one of the primary things is just a rogue DNS call. Now, this may not always seem susceptible to various machines or devices, but when you have certain, let's say, configurations or these applications that have a lot of strong threat intelligence inside, such as Extrahop, you'll be able to see these attacks. So then let's say I'm going to conduct a controlled test so that I can validate my security posture. I'm okay if this attack were to occur in my environment. And that is breach and attack simulation. So why are we getting to this? As you see from here, 2015 to 2020, there's plenty of ways that people are hacked. There can be various, password dumpers, misconfiguration, misdelivery, Trojans, ransomware, phishing. In any case, nothing has really changed or still being broken into. So from the concept of just the hardware, we haven't found a solution in the 20 plus 30 years now of trying to do this. We need to do something a little more proactive because there's no way to be completely safe. As for example, the simple state of misconfiguration has been up 5% over the last 5 years, meaning we're just waiting for the human error. So at any point in time, if we say we have a theoretically an imperfect system, there's no way for you to be secure unless you're always checking the system. So how do we check that system? This is where Threat Simulator comes in. So this is a very technical, we call it a ladder from the Threat Simulator. On the left, you'll see this ladder. On the right is a portion of the ladder. You'll see my demo soon, where we talk about its various stages of the kill chain. It's exercising. So from my ladder to the left, in the top right, I have my internal agent 1 and internal agent 2. And this right here is a simulation of the WannaCry infection and spread. And I'll explain what it means by that shortly. So internal agent 1, internal agent 2, these are Docker containers that have been deployed inside your environment. And this is where the attacks will be conducted to and from. And then on the right side of that, you also see dark cloud infected host, dark cloud name server, dark cloud poorproject.org. These are the malicious servers from our Keysight's dark cloud that'll act as the public side of that kill chain exercise, so that we can also communicate the most realistic pieces of, let's say, devices not inside your network that would also still be involved. So this all begins with my dark cloud's going to send its first attack, which is going to be an external blue exploit to my internal one agent. What I'm testing here is, will your firewall and IPS block the external blue exploit heading to my internal one target? If it did not block it, I'm going to assume I've installed a fuzzbunch backdoor on this device. Theoretical, but still realistic. So if I was able to do this, I would then move down to audit 2. I'm now going to send from that same dark cloud infected host, which would be simulating just another WannaCry infected host, a DNS, or sorry, the DLL for the WannaCry infection. Once again, if your system cannot block it, We will assume it's been received, it has passed, and now the DLL has been executed. Now moving to audit 3. I'm going to make a DNS query out from my internal one agent to this named DNS server out in my dark cloud. Once again, if you can't block the DNS entry out, we're going to continue through this entire process. But for example, if at audit 3, your system, being your security solution system, was able to block the DNS query out, we would stop the audit right there, because that's where the attack would stop. We're not just throwing a PCAP from place to place to say, oh yeah, it kind of looks like this. Now, why is this very important? The importance of this comes in how analytics are being done from our other devices, such as the Extrahop. This is a highly intuitive machine learning tool that needs a lot of information, 100% packet data if possible. And then with that, it's going to create an idea of what your network looks like from a performance and a security perspective on, say, certain time spans. Could be a day, could be a couple of months. And through these various time spans, it can say what's normal and what's an anomaly. Why is this device suddenly making this odd reach out to this random DNS server? And this is exactly what you want to look for. The fact is when you would be compromised internally, let's say in a real world situation, might be a USB stick that got plugged into the device. So audit 1, audit 2 is already gone. Audit 3 now, DNS query out. Did you block it? If you couldn't stop that, you could go ahead and assume your entire network could be potentially compromised. So we're going to use the most realistic attacks that are going to give the most realistic information to our analytical tools to show that our analytical tools will see these attacks so our SecOps teams can be successful. So lastly, just to say, if we were able to get through the entire audit 5 and say we've got now command and control this situation, we will then try to do this to say across the VPN to another data center inside your production network to see, can I do a cross-pollination of the WannaCry infection for just to say. So the idea is to reduce risk with the Keysight Threat Simulator. You're going to be able to identify certain gaps inside of your environment because you're going to be able to identify which devices will be tested by each of these audits or these security attacks. Meaning, I create a bit of algebra with this. I have A attack, and if I have B and C firewall and IPS, I should get D result. If I don't get the pass result, then I should know exactly from and we'll have this information available for you from the platform. You can get links directly to the manufacturer's platform on how to mitigate these attacks. So you get the real actionable intelligence that's going to hand you the solution at the end of the day. With that, you can then create an automation of various attacks that you must know you have to be protected on. That can be done on a daily basis. So now me as a security engineer, I'm now a super security engineer because I'm in 50 different places conducting red team activities on a daily basis that I can report on. And we give you very nice reports so that it makes it easy for you to explain this information to non-technical people as well. Very nice graphs, very nice visuals. Again, we're going to do the entire kill chain. This is very important, especially when it comes to ensuring your analytical tools that are mostly anomaly detection focused are capable of observing your situation. Sometimes the signature may be obscured inside the encrypted data or may not be known or might be a new signature. So sometimes the best information we have is unusual communication. This is always a good place to start if you're going to track down or threat hunt a problem inside your network. And because you're able to continually assess the situation as you see certain issues, and this could be issues that could be relative to the threat intelligence on the firewall IPS platform. Maybe today on the update of that threat intelligence, it was able to block, but on the next day it was not able to block. Then we had another update and it was able to block again. This little audit has now allowed me to understand how the differences in their threat intelligence database will affect the security of my environment. Unless you're constantly checking that, there's no way to be sure. Okay, so I'm just going to roll directly into my demo now. I'm going to give a quick demo over the network packet broker and a little bit of demo over Threat Simulator, just to kind of show the different information that would be available to you from these platforms. So to begin here, we have the web UI from our Vision 1 platform. So as you'll see, this is going to be divided in 3 different segments. On the left side, I have my network ports. In the middle, I have dynamic filters. And on the right side, I have tool ports. So it reads like a book, goes from left to right, an out-of-band configuration and diagram. If I want to connect traffic from a port to another dynamic filter, I would simply do a drag and drop. And very easily, I now have the new line applied to it, and the filter's been applied to the traffic of that port. So for example, also, if I want to extract specific types of traffic very quickly, I can filter by specific criterias. That could be on specific ports. That might be, for example, 443 for HTTPS. So everything's done by form flow. It's all automated. You're not going to be handling a giant configuration list. So as you see here, then we have a regeneration of the traffic coming from filter 1 to all of these various tool ports. In the imagination case that these could be various tools themselves. The traffic can then be also filtered to a resource, once again, the app stack, or listed here as the ATIP. We'll launch this real quick. So as I was saying before, the app stack is going to give us a bit of application data and information about the traffic as it's passing through. So it's keep a very short historical information concept on, because we're not trying to take over analytics on the distant end. But we can give you a little bit more information, and some of the information we derive here inside of these windows may be applied to the NetFlow 10 IPFix metadata generation. So, but from here, I can go into look at various applications that are being used, different types of dynamic apps. Dynamic apps meaning if it's let's say an application header I don't recognize, or it's from a location I don't recognize. Now, this could be useful to allow me to do such as building a filter specifically on this dynamic app. So if I ever have a specific rogue application inside of my device, I can always go to my dynamic apps and then start to find them and filter directly upon these. So as you see from here, I can filter on various applications such as 9gag or AOL Instant Messenger or any of these various known applications, as well as the dynamic ones as we spoke on before. We are able to take a packet capture from the packet stack and just to help you filter and make that traffic available for you. Okay, now I'm going to move us over to Threat Simulator. So just a note, going back to this, I have a tap. So as we were talking about, a tap gives me 2 simplex lines of traffic. That tap is then sending the traffic to my F1 and to my app stack, and this is what's feeding all my various devices on the right. And then we'll bring this up here now. Okay. So this is the UI for Keysight's Threat Simulator. We're going to start at the very top here, this little topology area. So as I was saying before, from my topology, I can observe the various agents or the dark cloud and how they're connected. Now, with that, whenever you see these little circles, this is considered a path. A path has a security profile, and the security profile is that XYZ combination of various things I want to test on this line. So say if I have a checkpoint firewall and I want to check the firewall rule, and then I also have a trend micro device and I want to check the IPS signature. So as you see at the top of this path configuration, everything that's being done between Lab Agent 2 and the dark cloud will be relevant to the measure types. This is what I'm testing because this is an active testing, security testing tool. So I'm going to test to verify these are correct, and this is the information I would receive on the back end after the test has been completed. We have these vendor-specific points because we have made a partnership with these vendors to find where their information to how to resolve these issues are. Real quickly about deployment, we love automation, so we want to make sure this can be as easy as possible for you, whether it be deploying this to the AWS cloud, where we're going to give you certain templates to download and give you all the step-to-step instructions to get it completed. With that, we can also do the let's say private deployment, where you can have very easily click the copy code to paste in and walk you through this entire process. With a, let's say with a normal Linux box that you can deploy, if say it's freshly installed, you could deploy this in probably 5 to 10 minutes without any hitch. It's all automated. You would never do more than name the actual agent itself. So such as the names we'd be applying to, on the left side, I have my lab agents 1 and 2. So we'll have a heads-up display that tells us if we need to upgrade our agents or keep, or if they need to be rebooted or things of that nature. We can group agents together, so I can say, this is my private cloud agents, these are my public cloud agents, to allow me a bit of easier use inside the platform. But then we're going to walk to what's the important important information here, and that's going to be the assessments or the various types of tests we're going to be able to conduct from this platform. So we've divided our various types of attacks into these 3 types in policy, instrumentation, and kill chain. Policy type attacks could be such as, I'm going to use an agent that's inside my network that's going to act as like, let's say a computer that's at a school. And I want to make sure my students can't go to porn sites or hacking sites to ensure that my devices stay safe. So we want to check the URL policy filtering from your security devices. This could be controlled from Internet Explorer, but it can very much be controlled from your firewalls and other security tools as well. So from this, I can then enact as if I was a computer on your network to reach out to all of these well-known devices or URLs to validate, would it be blocked? Moving on from there to the kill chain, we get to more of the interesting items, such as we were speaking about before, the WannaCry infection and spread. Each one of these will have detail. Let me bring this. So each one of these will have a loadable diagram to explain the entire attack to you. Lastly, we could go over to the instrumentation side, and this is where you can do such as endpoint Windows platform attacks, cross-site scripting style attacks, attacks that are going to validate if people could attack your web servers and things like that. Notably, we do track what the CISA identifies as the most, let's say, common attacks or most important attacks to be aware of, so that you can have some of these top 10 attacks being conducted on your environment on a day-to-day basis without any issues caused from your security side. So we're not going to have a lot of information here, but for the reports of the various scenarios or the assessments that are being done. This is a trial version, so I don't have a lot of the information populated. But these reports and these dashboards would then fall into a reporting structure One of the key notes I do want to point out as well is that the device is not only testing your security devices from, let's say, is it blocking type of concept. So not just the firewall, IPS and IDS, but we're also going to look at the SIEM solution as well. What is also important in a security operation, even if I was to block an attack, I need to know I blocked that attack. So what we'll do is whenever we send the attack in, it'll allow us to configure a SIEM, such as Splunk, QRadar, or Logs.io. We can configure the SIEM to be checked that it was auditing that our attack was blocked or our attack was seen in any of the case. And this way we understand that not also when these attacks come in, if they are blocked, they're still audited, because we need to have this audit trail lasting for months and months and months, just in case something happens. With that, you're going to have a full functional API. So you can have, let's say, automation on top of the automation to do, let's say, more custom on-the-spot jobs. Potentially deploying the agents and running these exercises without ever looking at the UI. Okay, so I'm almost at 45 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here and hand this presentation over to Jürgen Hoffman, who's going to go into the Extrahop security next generation IDS.